Good ladies morning, gentlemen. Happy Monday. There we go. Got it out. Glad you all are here today as we gather together to start the week out in biblical, theological, and worldview questions, and looking forward to seeing what is on your mind this week, this Monday, and no doubt, always a bunch of good questions that come in, and it'll be good. So this is the week. I've got to finish up some final touches of editing for Evangelical Garbage and get that book ready for sale. Let's still aim for February 1st. That's a week from tomorrow. I think we can make it. We're going to work hard this week and get there and be ready to go. See if people... Here's my prediction. Seminary professors... Bzzz. Baptist preachers, especially the denominational ones. And man in the pew, bing, bing, bing. I think it's a man in the pew book. That's my own prediction through there. Well, let's see. Last week I had a question about, Nathan, for some reason my Logos has turned to dark screen here. Do you know how to fix that? He says I have to restart Logos. Well, okay. Last week I had a question. I didn't want you to have to look at the dark mode. I don't really even like the dark mode. I know they came up with this dark mode a few years ago for all these things, and I don't know. What's your opinion on dark mode? What do you youngsters think? You like dark mode or? No. Nathan prefers it. Corbin says it depends, and Madison's with me. Okay. Well, now that Logos is coming back up. So last week we had a question on Ephesians chapter 3, verse 16, was it? Let me just double check here. Ephesians 3:15. And all the families of the earth. I'm sorry, I kind of forgot who wrote the question. And we looked into that just a little bit to see what was up with that. Now I'm going to get us there. Now that we're in light mode, we'll go to Ephesians 3:15 one more time, and a little follow-up. Of whom the whole family in heaven and on and earth is named. The whole family in heaven and earth is named. Now, I did go to Bollinger, but Arthur in Iowa, helped me to see something that I missed. We were looking at, what is this, the whole family in heaven and earth? What is it? And Bollinger said over here, the whole family, every family, no article. Okay, that's as far as I got. We talked about the word family, patria, right here, and I said my estimation was that the whole family included the universe, everything in the heavens and the earth, and so with that, then I said the only thing is, could patria, the word that is used there, could that be a word that that only can be used of a human family? Okay, I stopped right there, and I didn't notice right here, see longer note, page 1771. Well, when you go to that longer note, here it is, the longer note on Ephesians 3:15. And he gives what? A longer note, the whole family in heaven and earth. The word family is unfortunately rendering of patria. Now, I sometimes disagree with the way he, this unfortunate rendering. He was, I used to be where Bollinger was, but now I'm at the point where I say there was so much evidence for the choice of a particular word that if I would have used a different word, I tell myself I might have been convinced if I were to listen to the translators of the King James on why they used it. But we're reporting for Bullinger here. The unfortunate rendering of patria. Our English word takes its derivation from the lowest form of the household, famulus, the servant or slave. The Latin familia was sometimes used of a household of servants and sometimes of all the members of the family under the power of the paterfamilias. But the idea of patrias is Hebrew. Now remember, we did say last week, maybe this is a Hebraism. Okay, the idea of patria is Hebrew, a group or class of families all claiming descent from one pater. For example, the 12 tribes of Israel. Joseph was of the house and lineage, or the family, the patria of David, Luke 2:4. And it occurs some other places. To apply this, God has many families in heaven and earth, both in this age and the age which is to come. But with self-disregard of this fact, we see only one family, and that, of course, must be the church, but that it's the family to which we belong. Thus, we claim everything for ourselves, especially if blessing, mercy, or glory is attached, and so we completely ignore the fact that many of these families of God are named in Scripture. In 121, we have principality, power, might, dominion. The first two, again, being mentioned in 3:10. The principalities and the powers of the heavenlies, to whom God is now manifesting his manifold wisdom by means of the church, his body, is an object lesson. Others are mentioned, Colossians and 1 Peter. So he goes through this and gives a pretty good article, a decent article here. To limit the verse to the church, as many do, and to interpret it in wholly unscriptural terms of the church militant and the church triumphant, and the hymn book diction to sing, and he gives the hymn there, is not only to lose the revelation of the great truth of God, but to put error in place. Rightly divided, the families of God named in the New Testament are, in heaven, principalities, power, might, dominions, thrones, angels, archangels, and among the families of the earth of Israel are the Israel of God and the church of God. So, again, coming to Ephesians chapter 3, verse 15, of whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named, he takes a pretty broad approach on it also. I went a little more broad because I said the sun and the moon and the stars. He's saying the principalities, the angels, all of the serving creatures, coming from patria, the servant. So just interesting little take on all of that to bring up. Okay. Scott, congrats. You are the first in the room. I see reading some chats there. Lorna is with me, and Lorna says no dark mode. Thanks, Lorna. Russell, you're back. How we've missed you. Russell going on vacation last week or something. Welcome back. I think we should bring the Russell mug out here, and let's get the Russell music. We're gonna do the whole thing because, ladies and gentlemen, Russell is back, and he has a question. And now we're ready to go with the rifleman question of the day, coming from Kent, England. And our rifleman in training, we have a question that comes from Daniel, chapter 8, verse 25, starring Russell Driver. We missed you last week, Russell. Glad you're back here today. And let's look at the question here. Daniel chapter 8 and verse 25. I'm going to read the question first. I believe, Daniel 8:25, I believe is talking about the Antichrist. It says he shall cause craft to prosper. What do you think craft could be? Okay, what's craft in Daniel 8:25? Stop right there for just a moment. And it says in Daniel 8:25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. That's an interesting phrase there, isn't it? By peace shall destroy many. And he shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Now, we're not going to dig into it because I think I agree with Russell on it as well, that this is a reference to the Antichrist. If not a direct reference, ultimately it's a reference to the Antichrist. So speaking then of the Antichrist, that's not the part we're going to dig into, confirm, but as always, you should question the assumptions. Now, this being the Antichrist, he causes craft to prosper in his hand. What is prospering in his hand? What is craft? Let's take a little look here, just in the other times it's used, and it's always craft. But we want, excuse me, I looked that up in English, which is not going to work for us. Let's get back here and look this up in Hebrew. Okay, 39 times. Let's use the law of first use here. Genesis chapter 27, verse 35. He said, "Thy brother came with subtlety and hath taken away thy blessing." Subtlety, we might not use the word craft, but we certainly would use the word crafty. So probably, when we look at it that way, he shall bring about prosperity with a craftiness, the subtlety, or he is going to take craftiness to the next level. He's going to take subtlety to the next level. I think what this means is liar, liar, pants on fire. But he's such a good liar that it's going to be difficult to ever pin him down on it. He's going to say it in such a crafty manner, and his actions are going to be so crafty that he'll be able to do it. For example, let's suppose that there's like a government employee that starts in 1967 and makes literally millions upon millions upon millions, is the highest paid government employee there is, including being paid higher than the President of the United States. And in addition, has multiple millions on patents that he has made while under the employ of the government, and has enough insider information that he's able to buy stocks in like Pfizer and Moderna and things like this, and yet is presented to the world as, a man of great value to society. That's just a theoretical that, something like that could happen. That would be subtlety and craftiness when you are a snake in the grass. It's a possibility there. Now, let's look at a couple more. Deceitful is the second time. The sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully. They said, because he has defiled Dinah, their sister. Okay, here's a lie. Let's look at the third one. There is treachery, O Ahaziah. So we look at it, subtlety, deceit, treachery, deceit many times comes through here. Guile is another one that comes through and brings about all the various issues that are in there. Sorry, I had a little computer go out there. I had to stop talking and put in a password. Okay, so false, deceit. I'm going to go with, I think there's enough there, as you see. What do we have? 39 times. The 39 times, they're all in the area of subtlety, treachery, deceit, guile, liar, liar, pants on fire. So let's get back now to Daniel 8, verse 25. For through his policy he shall cause craft to prosper. In this sense, he's going to use policy that actually causes craftiness. No government policy has ever done that, of course. Government policy is to keep everyone honest, right? Yeah. He's going to be the best at it, the best at the game there. That's what I think craft is. Also, then, in Daniel 11, verse 38, and let's go there. And in Daniel 11:30, let's see, in Daniel 11:37, he shall not regard the God of his fathers, but 11:38, in his estate shall he honor the God of forces. What is the God of forces, and why is it spelled with an uppercase G? Let's check this out. Daniel 11:37 and 38. The question is, what is the God of forces, and why is it capitalized? Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers. Now that's capitalized too, and the word here is Elohim. Not only shall he regard the Elohim, neither shall he regard, he will not have regard for the God, the Elohim of his fathers. I think he's Jewish. I think here in verse 37, we haven't got to verse 38 yet, and the God of forces. But in verse 37, the God of his fathers is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Nor the desire of women. Now, some have taken this to say he's homosexual. I don't think it means that at all. That's a little eisegesis to do that. The desire of women, when you let Scripture interpret Scripture, the desire of women in Daniel's day was to give birth to the Messiah. So what you have here in verse 37, he will not regard the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his Jewish fathers, nor will he regard the Messiah, the desire of women, nor any God, lowercase, let's see, it's noun, common, masculine, plural, construct, noun, common, singular, absolute. A little bit different in the form here, but it is the word Elohim, nor regard any God. This is in the singular, which you don't see very often. Okay, so this definitely, I think they've done right here, capital G, lowercase g. Nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. Verse 38. But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces. Now, here's what we're trying to figure out. Who is this God of forces? If he does not regard the God of his fathers, who we believe is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, how in his estate does he honor the God of forces? Let's pull this apart and see if we can figure this out. In his estate, we've got a couple marginal notes right here. Says, or, the King James translators put or, as for the Almighty God, in his seat he shall honor, yea, he shall honor a God whom his fathers knew not. Okay, obviously, when they've got a marginal note that is that long, it's not just an issue of a word, it's the issue of the wording. And they're saying, hey, we've got some struggles here on how to present this to you, and we, the King James translators, want you to know that there is a little struggle, and here's another possible rendering that you could bring. Let's look, they've got another one. The God of forces, a marginal note, or munitions. Okay, the God of forces, that just helps us to know we're talking war materiel, the forces or the munitions. Now, also a translator note on forces, and it just tells us the word here, mauzim, which could be God's protectors. In his estate, he shall honor God's protectors, or the God of protectors, and a God whom his fathers knew not shall he honor with gold and silver and precious stones. You know, we clearly have two gods here. Let me highlight the right part. The God of forces and a God whom his father knew not. Okay, let's dig up the Hebrew here and see if we can come to any help. Let's start digging up the Hebrew by looking at the Young's Literal. And in verse 38, they have a lowercase, bring that just a little bit, Let's check. Okay, they have the uppercase God of his fathers, the lowercase to any god. Then they have the lowercase, and to the God of strongholds, on his station he giveth honor. Now, on his station is how they are interpreting, I assume, in his estate. The word estate there being, let's see, a place or a position. Okay, so don't think of estate here as, he died and left his estate, but his estate is, oh, what a wonderful estate out there that he lives on. It's his place, it's his real estate. So in his place shall he honor the God of forces. That seems, when you just read that and what we know about the Antichrist, seems like that ought to be a lowercase g, should it? Young's literal lowercase, King James uppercase. In his estate he shall honor the God of forces, and the God of strongholds on his station he giveth honor. Now, he giveth honor, he honor. One of the possibilities, I'm not sure it fits perfectly, but one of the possibilities you've got in Philippians chapter 2, every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Could it be some reference to that he is eventually going to bow down to the God of forces? Or is it better to go the Young's literal way and say, to the God of strongholds, which is some fake God, in his station he is going to give honor? Now, all we know now is we've got two possibilities, big G, little g. We do recognize, of course, that it's always, all capitalization is always an interpretation. So which interpretation is it? Here we've got it different. Okay, I want us to switch over. Let's go to Dr. Darby and see what he has to say. In his place he will honor the God of fortresses, lowercase, and a God whom his fathers knew. He's got a little note here under God of fortresses, and, well, he's got a symbol. I don't know what this symbol means. He's got the capital G there and the lowercase g all the way through. Pardon me, I'm unable to click on that symbol, and I don't know what he uses, what that symbol means for Darby, but he goes for a lowercase. So it's 2-1. Majority report. I'm not so quick to do there. I tell you what, let's just dig into another one, and let's come over and see what our friend Rashi has to say. Where are you, Rashi? In Daniel chapter 11, verse 38. Here we go. So Daniel happens to be in the scriptures, the Ketuvim, not in the prophets for the Tanakh, but in the Ketuvim, and several reasons for that. But Daniel chapter 11. Here we go. And show Mr. Rashi, and down to verses 37 and 38. See what he's got to say to us. Here we go. He will not contemplate the God of his fathers. Rashi says he will not put his mind to the Holy One. So he does use this, even though the translation itself does not use a capital G. His commentary does put it. Does not put his mind to the Holy One. Blessed be he who is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. That is, Israel's forefathers. Now, he calls the desirable of women, or the desire of women, to be the nation of Israel. He will not contemplate the God of his fathers, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the most desirable of women that is Israel. He will not contemplate or regard Israel, is how Rashi puts it. Now let's go on to verse 38. But the God of strongholds on its base he will honor. Now here he puts the base, the estate, to the God, not to the Antichrist, which is kind of interesting. I would imagine the Hebrew allows to go either way. In his estate, the Antichrist will honor the God of forces, or the Antichrist will honor the God of forces in his estate. Whose estate is it? Rashi points out that there's a bit of difference. Now, the God of strongholds, he calls this the God of the cherubim who will make a treaty with him. Okay, this would be very interesting because that obviously, that line right there, the God of the cherubim who will make a treaty with him. The Jewish version of eschatology is going to be different, obviously you can understand, than the Christian version. It'd be interesting to boil this out and take it. Now, here's what I think you've got. What is the God of forces and why is it spelt with an uppercase G? And Russell, being from Kent, has given us spelt in its English spelling. We would say spelled, would we not? Why is it spelled instead of spelt? It comes out about the same to the ear, and a little different to the writing. It's an orthographic issue. We like to use the word orthographic. We just know that it doesn't make any difference. It has to do with how the word is spelt. Okay. That Alabama people would say spelt. You spelt that wrong, right? But they would probably spell it spelled, pronounce it spelt. Just a little linguistic talk today. Here's my final answer, Russell. My final answer is that Daniel 11:38 needs more work in our study and interpretation. That it would be a long, long journey to determine whether or not this should be a capital G in our interpretation or a lowercase g. I think doing all the work, I think we would come out to the uppercase G. But then the question is, what would be the implications of that? I think I like Darby and I like the Young's literal translation, but I am not convinced their scholarship holds a candle to the scholarship of the King James. And I think that, again, if we could get the notes, and maybe they're available out there, if we could get the notes and dig into this and study it, I think that we would find the preponderance of the evidence puts it on the capital G. Now, let's take that for a moment here. He shall regard, neither, he will not regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of woman, nor any God. But in his estate, in that place where he is, he shall honor the God of forces. Or, should this swap around, he shall honor the God of forces when the God of forces is in his estate. You know, this could, I hinted at this a moment ago with Philippians, this could say the guy loses. He doesn't honor God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He doesn't honor the Messiah. He doesn't honor any God. But when God stands on his platform, he'll honor him. He'll honor him because every knee will bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. I think that's probably where we would end up. Now, again, that would probably, to do that right, we could probably chase some things down, which is the only way to do it. We'd probably chase some things down if we were working on it full time, it might take us till 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, getting some good Jewish commentaries, getting some good critical commentaries, because we know there's a little bit of a linguistic issue here, digging into the language, doing some cross references, all of these kind of things, putting a good theology together in it in the end, and come up with that which probably would convince the ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Now, obviously, the King James translators, they had to do that work to come up with the capital G, but it's not their job to comment on it and give that work. They just give us the capital G. So there's my interpretation of all that. How is that? Since he was gone all week, we gave him you got the full half hour there for those 2 questions. Thanks. Oh, we have a question from Madison. How about this? Madison from Green Bay, Wisconsin, via Taos, New Mexico. She's in the live studio audience today. When do you think we'll do a verse-by-verse study of Philippians? I love that book and would love to hear your take on it. Well, let's see. I tell you what, Madison. That I actually was thinking just, I don't know, yesterday or sometime recently, I was thinking, I haven't done Philippians. Now, I did Philippians when I was not a right divider. You can go back and listen to that if you want to. It would not be worth your time. It's probably full of a bunch of evangelical platitudes and feel-good stuff. But the book of Philippians is a rather interesting book. You got the jailer at Philippi, so we've got the message of grace there at Philippi. You also have Lydia, the color of purple, at Philippi, and I'm convinced that Lydia was a Jewess. And so you've got a Jewish message, you've got a Gentile message, and what do you do with the book of Philippi? So let's see, we're on, what are we on now? Titus, and that about finishes those. Now I've got a Philemon in there. I think, Madison, before you depart, that we can make that happen, because Pauline epistles are my agenda this day. Thanks, Madison, for your good work here. Okay, let's see here. We are. Yeah, thank you. Russell says, apologies for my unauthorized absence. I will take it as an unpaid leave. I was going to get with you on that later to let you know this probably would be an unpaid. Oh, you're right. Is there a new light behind Randy? He's radiating light. I am, aren't I? It's because we forgot to turn it off. That's the grow light for the plant that's left. Barely the plant that's left. Yeah, the grow light's on. And he says he notices, but he didn't want to just walk in there. We should give them all black T-shirts or something, like the stage crew, so that they could go turn it off. So we'll just leave on the glow. Edith in 58 degree, was it 58 degree? I saw it earlier. Edith in Missouri. How would you explain Romans 2:16, especially according to my gospel? Do you mean Romans 1:16? But let me check 2:16 just to double check. No, you mean Romans 2:16, just like Edith said. So Romans 2:16. How do you explain according to my gospel in Romans 2:16? Let's take a look at that and see what we've got here. In the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel. It would be very difficult, I think, to take my gospel and not make that Pauline. I think that as we go and as we look through that, Paul does talk about the kingdom gospel or the gospel of God, sort of the overall good news of the Bible. He does talk about those things and even uses the term gospel because that is the word that would be used for it. But those are other gospels that he's talking about, other good news that he's sharing. But I think when you get my gospel, indeed you are going to have to narrow that down to the Pauline Gospel. Let's just double check the Greek here. The glad tidings that are mine, the gospel that is mine. Yeah, that, as I look at that Greek right here, euangelion mu, that would be my gospel. And so, again, back to the verse, in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ according to my gospel. Now, let's take a verse before and a verse behind, let's see. Let's go to verse 14. For when the Gentiles, which have not the law, do by nature the things contained in the law, these, having not a law, are a law unto themselves, which show the work of the law written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and their hearts and their thoughts. Let me get this right. Their conscience also bearing witness, and their thoughts the mean, while accusing or else excusing one another. In the day in which, now we've got this, the reason I keep going back, we've got this parenthetical statement. I want to get to the beginning of that okay, so King James has the parentheses beginning at verse 13. So let's look at verse 12. For as many as have sinned without the law shall perish without the law, and as many as have sinned in the law shall be judged by the law in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ. So we've got, I think he I hate to say chases a rabbit because this is that makes it sound discounted, those particular three verses of the parentheses. But he moves aside for just a moment and explains some things, and then he comes back. But I think that is helpful, again, to remove that parenthetical statement in 13, 14, and 15, and to go from 12 to 16. So again, in 12, as many as have sinned without the law will perish without the law. As many as have sinned in the law will be judged by the law. Now, when is this going to happen? This is going to happen in the day when God shall judge the secrets of men by Jesus Christ, according to my gospel. Now, I think that what he is explaining here, and you all are hurting my feelings talking about that plant, but what he is explaining here is that his gospel does include a place for those outside of the age of grace. And his gospel is, prior to the age of grace, you're not judged by the age of grace. Prior to the age of grace, you're judged by the law. And this will happen in the day when God shall judge the secrets of the heart. I think this is the judgment day at the second coming, not the rapture. So even though the Pauline Gospel covers, the Pauline Gospel of how to be saved is covered in the period from Paul, who started the pattern, to the rapture, where the pattern ends. But the Gospel of Paul speaks of, what about those on the other side? And I think, and this is a quick interpretation, I might change my mind this September when we teach in Missouri, Branson, Missouri, do the book of Romans graphically presented. I may change my mind some, but at this point, what I have here, what I believe here is that what we've got is Paul saying, hey, those not in this dispensation, my gospel has a place for them too, and they belong in their dispensation. It's a quick run through it, but nonetheless, there it is. Yeah, the plant has COVID. This is the problem. The plant has COVID. I would put a mask on it, except I don't really go by the mask mandate, so I don't have a mask to stick on the plant. Thanks, Edith, for the good question there. And let's keep that under advisement on Romans 2:16, because again, I might change my mind when I come to it. And by the way, just a programming announcement. Next Monday, a week from today, I will not be broadcasting. And that is because I am going to take a day, and I'm going to try to do a day a month between now and then. And I'm going to totally focus on the book of Romans in order to be ready for the retreat. And so next Monday is the day. I told myself I was going to do this once a month, and then I looked and thought, I'm running out of month. What is happening? I gotta take care of this. Nancy, maybe the grow light will produce hair on Randy's head. I don't know. You know, I've said before, if I had hair, I would shave it off. What a hassle. Those of you who have to deal with hair all the time, what a royal hassle. I feel so sorry for you all. Every day you got to get up and do something with it. Just a hassle. Okay, our next question of the day comes from Charles in the Muskogee Creek Indian Nation, also known as Tulsa. Charles, also known as the instigator. Question about universalism. Rodney says, ion, the Greek pronunciation, is a period of time. Randy says forever. Google says that it can mean both, unbroken age or forever. Yeah, eternity age. Whatever it means, are there any scriptures that say they get out of jail if this is a period of time? Oh, that's a good question. Now, actually, I go with Google on this one. I wouldn't always. I think that eon, I'll use the English word here. The word eon certainly can mean a long period of time that has an ending. And it's used sometimes that way in Scripture. But it can also mean forever. But that aside, I think you hit a very good question here. Even if it is a short period of time, are there any scriptures that say there's a get out of jail card at the end of this time? So you take, for example, that you will be punished for eons. What after that? What after that? It would be an assumption to say, well, after that you go to heaven. I know of no passage of Scripture that even hints at such a thing. So that would mean it would be made up. That this punishment in the lake of fire is just for a period of time, and because it's for a period of time, after that period of time, we have an ice cream party. That's what happens after the period of time, is we have an ice cream party, a little vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry, a Neapolitan. We have this ice cream party. Obviously, I made that up, but that's what you would have to do, is make it up. So therein, and I appreciate it, I wish you'd have told me this before yesterday when I did the sermon, therein really does lie a great point. Whatever it means, are there any scriptures to say they get out of jail after this period of time? I'm going to chew on that and contemplate it, but I don't know of any just immediately right offhand that would say, yeah, after that period of time, you get out of jail. You get to go to heaven. That you'll be his. Probably the only way to make it is if you were to to somehow take even, I don't know, let's say we started the morning, didn't we, in Ephesians chapter 3, verse 15, of whom the whole family in heaven and earth is named, and really take that beyond what it actually says and say, well, if the whole heaven and earth is named after him, the whole earthly, the whole beings of families is named after him, then therefore they're all going to go to heaven. But then you would have to have the Antichrist going to heaven, and the false prophet going to heaven, and the devil going to heaven as well, because they would be included in this whole family. So you might prove too much. You might prove more than you wanted to prove. But yeah, you would have to take some of these passages, again, like perhaps it's not his will that any should perish, but that all should come to redemption. And that's often misused anyway. But take one of those passages and misuse it in another way and say, well, so see, after a time of punishment, they're going to go to heaven. When actually the whole passage is about the reason judgment hasn't yet come is because he doesn't want to send them to judgment. But it's coming. It is coming. Absolutely. Excellent insight there. And the question, I appreciate that. Paul up in King, Wisconsin. Are angels like Gabriel and Michael physical beings? For the Bible has occurrences where they eat food, Genesis 18:8, and they touch people, 1 Kings 19:5. Let's just look at 1 Kings 19:5. And I think here we're talking just general. I don't think it's Gabriel and Michael specifically, but nonetheless, if Gabriel and Michael are physical beings, then I think the rest of them would be too. So are angels physical beings? 1 Kings 19:5, and as he lay and slept under a juniper tree, behold, then an angel touched him and said unto him, arise and eat. This is, I believe, speaking of Elijah. Now, you've got another place, I'm thinking in Daniel, where there is some degree of interpretation about who we're talking about here. But if we're talking about Michael the archangel and the battle that they had for that 21 days, that does not appear to be a battle that took place in our realm, at least, against the Prince of Tyre, is it? But that really doesn't mean, if they're not in our realm, that doesn't mean they're not physical. Do we see anywhere where the angels appear to be not physical? I think we could probably argue that the angels can appear, shall we say, out of nothing, out of nowhere. But I don't think, even with our science today, I don't think that means that it's not physical. Means it's not visible. It means it's not hindered by the physics as we know it. But I think, here's my understanding of it, and I don't know, I don't know physics all that well. But all matter is a bunch of, it's a bunch of, what would you call it, Nathan? Cells, atoms, we'll call it atoms. All matter is a bunch of atoms. And there is space between all atoms. Is that correct, Nathan? Yeah. So all atoms have space around them. Now, I understand that if you had, let's say, our if we were to put coffee in here, heaven forbid, but if we were to put coffee in here, the atoms don't fit between the space that's there, and so it holds the coffee. But is there some kind of liquid that goes through the space, in which case you would pour it in and it would come out the bottom? I don't know that liquid exists, but that's my very rudimentary understanding of physics. There's probably some physics expert out there either saying amen or saying, oh my, help this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But Nathan says something about gamma rays and radiation, whatever that means. But I think that my point is, could angels physically either morph, or their physical body does allow it to go through the space, the space between those atoms, and therefore the cup is here, and the other physics, both of the physics still exist in the physical world. I think I will go with, and again, we might find out the fuller revelation sometime, but I think I'll go with angels like Gabriel and Michael. Every time we see them, they're in a physical form, no doubt. I think that we're going to find that, yeah, they are physical beings. Probably even can eat food, as Genesis 18:8. And in fact, I will probably say even do eat food. That this is a regular thing for Gabriel and Michael to sit down at the dinner table and have food together. When you get into eternity, you've got the tree of life that produces the fruits every month, and there's no idea that in our glorified bodies that we're not still going to eat, for which aren't we grateful? It's almost like eating, which is a very physical thing, is designed to be something that we do for all of eternity. So I'm going to go with physical beings. Now, I'm going to say physical beings with the capability to do a little Star Trek action. Beam me up, Scotty. And that's just a knowledge that, for the most part, outside maybe of the scientific laboratory, we haven't gotten anywhere other than to think about it. And somebody, I mean, Star Trek can visualize it, but there's probably some scientists that can explain it and tell how it happens and keep the physicality of it. So I think it's there.
If you're talking about transporter functions in Star Trek, it's not technically physically possible in our world.
Corbin is setting me straight. He says it can only happen on Star Trek. But I think it's because he's young. And let's give him enough time. I'll be dead by then. But maybe down at Los Alamos they'll figure it out. Is it physically possible? I don't know. To some degree, it has to be physically possible because Jesus appears to have done it in his resurrected state. So what is now? Obviously, you could say no. He quit being physical. He became spiritual, and then he started being physical again. But is that possible? Matter? What did I don't know my physics well enough. Matter never ceases to exist. So somehow the material spreads out and then gathers back together again, that I'm not convinced it's not physically possible. But we shall see. Gabriel and Michael, I'm gonna put them as physical beings. Mainly because every time we see them, they're physical beings. Thanks, Paul and King. I got a question I owe you too. Still, sorry, Paul. I'll get back to that question. When I saw your name, I remembered. It's supposed to be Paul. Okay, Rudy in Belgium. After assurance of salvation, and I'm glad you're bringing this up. After assurance of salvation and universalism, I hope we'll have a sermon about the differences and similarities between the kingdom gospel and the grace gospel. Thank you so much for these two excellent sermons. What do you mean 2? Before that, I preached on what is the gospel. What do you mean 3? Before that, I preached the Bible in one sermon. You should say 4 excellent sermons. I know that's what you meant. That's why I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah, okay. So the differences and similarities between the kingdom gospel and the grace gospel, you got it. It is a sermon coming up. As a matter of fact, I was thinking before I came in, I was thinking that I was going to take requests because I'm not to a series yet. I'm dancing around a series. Normally, about February 1st is when I come into a series of 30 things, and I'm dancing around. I just haven't, the Lord just has not spoken to my heart. I haven't solidified it exactly where it is. I've got some constraining issues of the environment in which I preach because we get a lot of tourists, especially during the summertime. So I really need kinds of sermon series that sort of tie together, but also at the same time, for the fellow who comes in from, wherever he is, Oklahoma or whatever, and is just there for a Sunday and doesn't know anything about me or us, they can catch that. They didn't need last week's and next week's in order for it all to come together. And that's kind of unique just to our setting right here. But anyway, in between, I'm taking suggestions. So I am going to put this up as the differences and the similarities between the two gospels, because I think we talk about the differences more than we talk about the similarities. And I think in the similarities is where we get in trouble. That's where the evangelicals think they're the same thing because of the similarities. So you got it. It's on the agenda. I will start working on that. Probably even Rudy. I'll let you know in a day or two if this changes. Probably even this coming Sunday. Congratulations. I appreciate that. Just because it's a comment, Scott's a Texan, and Texans are all very smart. So he's speaking of this physicality issue, and I think this was before I actually spoke on it that he had his comment. But I want to read it, and it's too long for me to just read silently as I talk. I've always figured that heavenly beings comprise both total spiritual existence, which includes what we experience as physical. They can exist on all levels and interact with both realms, real spiritual and real physical. They're not restrained or restricted or held by our sense experience of reality. I agree with you there, that they do exist on both realms. The question would be, that which we would call their spiritual existence, is that a especially when we're talking corporeal, is there a difference between that and the physical, or is it a manifestation difference that is there? Okay, thank you. Let's see, from Gerard in the Kingdom of the Netherlands. Brother Randy White, what's your take on this article called Beware the New King James Bible is Translated from Corrupted Alexandrian Manuscripts, and how these corrupted versions can be dangerous regarding salvation by promoting Roman Catholic work-based doctrines? And gives me the place that I can find the article. I'm going to attempt to hand the keyboard over and have Nathan type that article in there at jesusisprecious.org. But I will go ahead and speak to that even as he brings up the article. I think the article will shed some extra light on it, but is not necessarily one that we need to. We would have to study in order to answer the question. Now, the New King James Bible translated from corrupted Alexandrian manuscripts. I am not totally sure. Oh, did you need me to put the screen back where it had flipped from? I was trying to catch my coder in this issue. But I would have to look into the New King James and see what manuscripts they used. Now, I was under the understanding and I may be wrong here, I was under the understanding that they used virtually the same text as the King James. Let's call it the Textus Receptus. However, they may have found a few places where they did not do that, and they used, I would agree with your terminology here, the corrupted Alexandrian manuscripts. Those corrupted Alexandrian manuscripts, certainly, whether or not the New King James, and I'm not a New King James fan, I would, how do I say this properly? I would not recommend the New King James, but the basis of my not recommending it may not even be on the manuscript. Even if it was exactly the same manuscript, I wouldn't use a New King James. I think that just the pronouns for me, the pronouns thee, thy, they lost too much when they went to the modern pronouns. And there wasn't any reason to lose that. I mean, it's not that hard to teach a kid. I suppose we could teach Hallie. She's not even 2 yet. I suppose we could teach her, this is thine. And we could teach her the difference between thy and you and when to use them. I think if we started now, what do you think, Nathan? I think if we started now with Hallie, who again is not 2 years old yet, that by the time she was 3, she would use proper pronouns. When she's talking to a group of people, it would be you. When she's talking to a singular, it would be thou. I think we could teach her that, and she would get it. Okay, Nathan, the dad, gives me the nod that, yeah, she could learn that. It's not such a big deal. So if we could teach it, I don't know if we will, because it might be a little awkward for my granddaughter to, thine purse is beautiful. But I think she could do it if we could teach her to do it in certain realms. The point would be proven, but I think we could teach it nonetheless. So why go now? Here I did bring up the article here. The New King James Bible is from Corrupted Alexandrian Manuscripts, and let's just get this where we can look at a couple. He gives sort of the flow of the traditional text line and the Alexandrian text line. I am going to assume, from what I look at here, this looks accurate. Now, they do put I don't see NKJV right there in that, but I suppose...
The last one before it says footnotes.
The last one before, where do you see that? Oh, right there, NKJV, yes, there it is, thank you. Okay, so he puts that there. Now, my only question, I think I agree with all of this. I don't know if his manuscript numbers are right, but they're relatively right. 5,210 manuscripts versus 45. Someone might say, no, there are 67. Well, whatever it is, it's a minuscule number compared to the traditional text line. Now, is that the basis of the New King James? Let's just read the first paragraph here, and the way this page is lined out, I've got to see if I can, maybe if I just use the little plus. There we go. Jesus said that the devil is a big liar, and every time he opens his mouth, he speaks lies because he has no truth whatsoever in him. I'm kind of snarky like that too, so I sort of like the way he started that. Satan will steal, kill, and destroy everything you love and hold dear in life. The New King James is filled with a mix of perversions from the corrupted Alexandrian text. The New King James is not a King James. I would agree with that. Few Christians understand that there are two major sources of our Bible today. One is the reliable Textus Receptus from Antioch, Rome. The other is the source of, this is the source of our beloved 1611 King James. And there's, okay, all other modern versions are translated from the corrupt Alexandrian, or they incorporate its corruptions into the Textus Receptus. Now, this sentence right here is probably the heart of it. They incorporate the corruptions into the Textus Receptus. I would not be surprised to find out that that is correct, that the New King James didn't use as its basis, like the New American Standard, didn't use the Alexandrian text, but they did take this here, there, and maybe in some important places. The New King James Version does this. All of the New King James footnotes refer to Alexandrian corruptions. That probably is true. And probably what they do is, this is my guess, because I've never really used New King James much. Probably what they do is those footnotes favor the corrupted text. Okay, Scott does he has a good comment here on the New King James Version. David Daniels of Chick Tracts, excuse me, who Scott points out, and I'll point out too, is not a right divider, but very, very solid King James fundamentalist. He calls the New King James Version a gateway drug for the new versions. That's I like that terminology there, and that probably what it is. So I am going to I'm going to say that while I'm not enough of a student of the New King James to verify what this particular article is about, by David Stewart, that there probably is enough tipping of the hat, at least, to the corrupted Alexandrian manuscripts. Now, that said, I use Bullinger a lot, and we had even an illustration earlier today in which Bullinger, I think, tips the hat a little too much there. The texts say, he'll often say, the texts say. What he's referring to is those Alexandrian texts, those corrupted texts. And I put that up to, and maybe I shouldn't, but I put it up to, he was working at the same time as Westcott and Hort. I don't think he totally understood the corruption of those manuscripts, nor do I think he understood the demonic work there that was going to pull people away from having a Bible in their hands. So I excuse Bullinger a little bit, and maybe I shouldn't excuse Bullinger a little bit. I do, but maybe I shouldn't. But I can tell you, by the time the New King James Version came, I don't know what the year of that was, but maybe the 80s, 90s, somewhere in there. I don't think that they have any excuse. By then, you could study it. Now, I use New American Standard. I talk about, I had I have NASB stained fingers, and I agree that. I agree with Scott there. The New King James is better than the New American Standard. And I'm embarrassed that I would use the New American. You know why I use the New American Standard? Because I was a parrot. Because I went to the big box seminary and they said, the New American Standard is the most literal English translation there is. And I said, I want the most literal English translation there is. I still remember early on when I was making my shift into fundamentalism or out of evangelicalism, I still remember people asking me, I remember one guy, he said, are you a TR guy? Teddy Roosevelt? Oh, my phone's ringing, my phone. I had no idea what he was talking about with the TR. And that's because, again, you go to the big box seminary, they don't teach you this stuff. They dish out the propaganda, and you just take the propaganda and you never question the assumptions. Well, there's really no excuse for that. Unfortunately, I grew up along the way and started doing it. But what we have to get people to do, young people, like Madison and Corbin, is to read a book from the beginning and like figure it out. Do some homework. Check out these things. That there's all these options. I'm pretty convinced that doesn't matter what it is in life, there is another side of the story. I sent Nathan something the other day. See if I can find it here. I may or may not be able to. But it was some article. I just closed the link out today. And now I can't find it. Well, here's another one. I'll go ahead and send it just to show you how Nathan questions the assumptions. I sent him this picture. Is this a mosquito? No, it's an insect spy drone for urban areas already in production, funded by the U.S. government. It can be remotely controlled and equipped with a camera and microphone, and it can land on you, and it may have the potential to take a DNA sample and leave RFID tracking nanotechnology on your skin, and it can fly through an open window, or it can attach into your clothing until you take it home. And what was it? What was it you said, Nathan? His response was, here it is. Only if they figured out a secret battery. Okay. Didn't just immediately buy into it. Like, well, you got to have a battery for that. How you gonna stick the battery? I suppose this is the battery right here. It could probably last a long time, but batteries do run down. So they got to figure that part out. Okay. So I bring all that up to say, we really need to have a suspicious mindset in the world that we live in today. And too many young people in ministry, since I'm training Corbin, I'll tell him right here. Too many young people in ministry just accept that which they're told and never really dig into it and question it and check the assumptions. And that has been harmful for the faith. Now, flip side of that, Corbin, is that when you question the assumptions, they will call you a loon and crazy and hard to deal with and uncooperative and all the other things that go along. Brainwashed. They'll call you brainwashed because you won't accept the brainwashing. So it becomes a difficult thing. I am out of time, and let's see. Sorry about those of you on YouTube. I didn't even get over there, but I will take those and put this in tomorrow. Let's see, I saw someone said something here about an airlift in Ukraine. I want to find that. Looks like Israel's planning, Linda in Lexington says, looks like Israel is planning a mass airlift of Jews out of Ukraine if war is going to break out. They have 75,000 Jews in Ukraine. They don't know how many would want to leave, but apparently all of them are eligible for citizenship. That is correct, that they are all eligible for citizenship. Any Jew in the world that can prove their Judaism anyway. There is a little bit of a proving process there. But any Jew in the world has what they call the right of return, and they can go to Israel and be citizens. If I was a Jew living in the Ukraine, I would take up the opportunity. I would get on the plane. I would leave Ukraine behind and be gone. And I think that what we've got in the Ukraine is a pending humanitarian disaster that I doubt the United States in its disastrous government it's got right now anyway, I doubt that the United States is going to do much other than talk a little bit Oh, we're tough. Don't you do that, Pewty boy. Don't, no. Send my boy Hunter some money, but don't you do that. And then go on with their foggy existence. And I think the Ukrainian situation now probably, it has the potential to be. Now, it may not, these things can turn on a dime and go either way. But I think the Ukrainian situation now is the most dangerous in the world. I think, obviously, Putin, has some limited capabilities, but not that much. He's stronger than Hitler was back in the day, and even I would say comparatively stronger than Hitler was. In many ways, sort of the same kind of isolationist mindset of the United States that was there in the Hitler day. And it just, the possibility is there that Putin goes into the Ukraine and doesn't stop. The sanctions, they're not going to send us milk. He's got that figured out. He knows how to overcome the sanctions. And he doesn't care about, we put bad news about him in the mail or, on the press. He doesn't care about any of that. So he may not do it. I mean, it's a game of risk, taking over the world, and you're trying to decide, okay, can I do it? Can I make it? Possibly. And he may look at it and he may come right to the brink like Khrushchev did in, the Cuban Missile Crisis. May come right to the brink and then say, I'm backing off. He may do it, and I hope he does. That would be better for the Ukraine, certainly be better for the world. He may go into the Ukraine and regroup his troops there and keep on going. He's already, we think about Crimea and some of those other places. Ukraine is not the first time this has happened. So why not expand? Why not rebuild the Eastern Empire, behind the Iron Curtain? Why not bring that about? Putin is one who appears to like that legacy and to want to do that. So much that is at stake there. If I was a Jew, I would get out, not necessarily because Putin has the anti-Semitic ideas, though he kind of does, all of Europe does. But he's not about the ethnic cleansing that Hitler was about, but he's certainly about building an empire. And that empire will not be a good thing for its people. As Linda says, wants to build the USSR back. And the USSR was not a good thing for the people who lived in the USSR. So I wouldn't matter if I was, full-blooded Russian. I would get out of there. A full-blooded Ukrainian, that would fit all the care. I don't want to live there. I would get out, even if it was my homeland. I would get out. Time to move. Time to go somewhere else. It's awfully hard to make any kind of predictions in this regard, because there are so many different things that could change, and because all we have is a little bit of fake news that we got, and who knows what the real thing is. So I don't think anybody on earth today can tell you what's going to happen, including Putin probably can't tell you what's going to happen, because again, it's a chess game, and he's going to move, and the other guy's going to move, and then he's going to have to decide what to do. So there's no guaranteed outcome. We're too early in the chess game to know what's going on here. But I think it's a very dangerous situation, and could be, given those we have in control of our government, as Scott says, Putin is unstoppable. He is unstoppable if we don't stop him. And given the people we have in control of our government, are they gonna stop him? Okay, I am way over time. Time to stop here.